This is Christopher John Björkness. It is January 2nd, 2025. Today I'm going to be decoding the Kabbalistic agenda behind replacing Westerners, most specifically the Atlanticist Leviathan of the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and now America, with Hindus from India and other places. There is also a political agenda behind all this that relates to the fact that Hindus are ethno and religious nationalists, just like the Zionists, and the Hindus have a deep hatred of Muslims, just like the Zionists, the Hindus, and the Muslims have been committing atrocities against one another. Vicious, horrible atrocities for many centuries, and there's no love lost between them. Much as the same, we'll get into that another day. I want to hit the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah of this is really deep, and I'm going to be explaining to you how the fact that the Hindus don't eat meat, they're vegetarians, relates to this whole agenda which is being pushed on us in the West, that animals are the source, one of the main sources of climate change. They're killing off our cattle, they're killing off our dairy cows, they're killing off the pigs and chickens, and they're doing this in the name of climate change. They're making it difficult to get eggs. The price of eggs and beef has skyrocketed. They're creating fake meat alternatives. All this relates to making the Western world a welcoming place for vegetarian Hindus. It also relates to driving the souls of Western people, European peoples, the Atlanticists in particular, the Leviathan in particular of the Edomite Christians, driving them down the great chain of being so that their souls plummet to Satan instead of elevating up to God. The Hindus worship animals like the ancient Egyptians did. The ancient Egyptians are perceived as being chaos, as being the darkness, the primordial waters of chaos, tohu vavohu choshech. The Indians are, in that sense, the modern Egyptians. So the Indians are perceived by the Kabbalists as being the most satanic idol worshippers on the earth today, the most like the Egyptians. And I want to clarify that I am describing the beliefs of the Kabbalists. These are not my beliefs. I am not a religious person. I don't harbor any animosity towards Indians or Hindus. I simply don't want to be replaced by them. And I don't want their culture affecting the culture in the West because I don't like their culture. I don't want to live under their culture. I don't believe in a caste system. It's diametrically opposed to everything that I believe in as an American. So please understand. And if you take offense at what I'm saying, take it up with the Kabbalists, because I'm discussing their ideas and their beliefs, not my own. So the Kabbalists perceive Indians as idol worshippers, and the worst kind of idol worshippers. They worship the sacred cow, i.e. the golden calf. They worship snakes, which to the Kabbalists means they worship Samael and Satan. They worship animals as gods. Animals are beneath human beings on the great chain of being, and therefore more distant from God than even human beings and the angelic host in the heavens. So the Indian beliefs are driving the Indians down towards Satan, towards chaos, towards darkness. The Indians have dark skin, which is perceived by the Kabbalists to mean that they bear the curse of Ham, that they bear the mark of Cain. But all of these things, which to Christians seem so bad, to the Kabbalists are very good, because in the tractate Sanhedrin, in the Babylonian Talmud, it says that the world has to become either entirely good or entirely evil for the Messiah to arrive, the Messiah of the Jews, the Messiah, son of David, son of King David. So the Hindus provide this move towards making the world entirely evil. They are going to take over the west of Amalek. Now, this also relates very much to the fact that they are making Indians the head of Western media, Western politics, and especially the developers of artificial intelligence. The Kabbalists, together with Rudolf Steiner, believe that artificial intelligence has the soul of demons, that machines, robots, computers, cell phones, all these things are vessels for the material vessels for the demonic souls that the Kabbalists believe are flying all around us. And the Kabbalists believe that if we had eyes that could see, we would see 1,000 demons on our left and 10,000 demons on our right. So they are creating vessels for these demons and giving them intelligence through artificial intelligence. And the vessels are the computers, the robotics, the drones, the cell phones, all the smart devices in our house, even our automobiles. Every machine, they believe, is of the material world and therefore can capture only a demonic soul. It has none of the sparks from God. And they believe that Hindus have none of the sparks from God, because instead of worshiping the gods above in heaven, they worship animals who are below even human beings. And they worship many gods. Satan is the great divider. So instead of worshiping the one God, the monad, they worship a diversity of animal gods. All of this is proof to the Kabbalists that the Hindus are the closest thing to worshiping Samael and providing evil to the earth, and are therefore the perfect conduit for creating demonic, artificial intelligence. So I'm going to pull up the great chain of being and start to explain all of this in more depth, and explain to you why they made the Vice President J.D. Vance with his Hindu wife, Usha, why Google's CEO is Sundar Pichai, and he's pushing for artificial intelligence, not only artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence that then goes on to independently create more artificial intelligence and to design new machines to be the vessels for these demonic souls that will be given this artificial intelligence. We also have Trump appointing Sri Ram Krishnan as his advisor for artificial intelligence. There is a reason that Hindus are being cherry-picked to develop artificial intelligence. And that reason is that the Kabbalists believe their religion is demonic, worships the golden calf and the serpent Samael, and is driving everyone down towards chaos and away from God, to the lesser order of the animals, as opposed to the singular perfection of the monad, of the one, the Holy One, the God of Israel. They want to subvert our souls and strip us of our souls. They want to take away all of our animal foods so that Hindus feel comfortable replacing us in our own lands, and so that our souls, like the souls of Hindus, are driven towards Satan and away from God, towards the world of matter and minerals and plants, instead of taking the divine spark of soul which exists in animals as our food to elevate our own souls towards God. This whole push that cows and methane are the source, one of the primary sources of climate change, and therefore we need artificial meat and we need to poison cows in ways that will eventually poison human beings and exterminate us. All of that is integrated with this agenda of replacing us with Hindus, both to make it a vegetarian, vegan world so that the Hindus feel comfortable here replacing us, but also to drive our souls down to their level so that they can get rid of us. Let me pull up the great chain of being so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is a Neoplatonic depiction of the great chain of being, which derives from Neoplatonism, Middle Platonism, and Platonism. We have here the monad, the one, called the Holy One in Judaism. And the Holy One wanted to create a world, but couldn't create a world without subdividing itself and losing its perfection and becoming distant from itself. So the Holy One emanated what's called the demiurge, the craftsman, to create a universe for him without dividing himself. So the creator God becomes the demiurge. And then he wanted to impart souls into the being that he created. So like Adam is divided into his male aspect, Adam, and his female aspect, Eve, we have the demiurge being divided into the world soul. Now take particular note of the fact that we are growing more and more distant from perfection, ultimate goodness, and singularity in the Holy One into division, distance, multiplication, further and further down towards chaos. We then have the Greek lesser gods being portrayed as angels in Christianity, and Judaic myths. The lesser gods become the angels. And notice that there are more angels than the division of the demiurge into the demiurge and the world soul. The world soul imparts souls into the lesser gods and into people. Notice that the angels are more distant from God than the world soul and the demiurge. And human beings are more distant and more numerous, more divided than the angelic beings, and further away from God. Below human beings are the animals. There are more animals than human beings. They are less perfect, less ordered, less intelligent, have less intellect than human beings, than the angels, than the world soul and the demiurge, and infinitely more so from God, and are more and more distant from God. Beneath the animals are the plants. The plants are more numerous than the animals. They have no intellect. They are less ordered than the animals. The animals consume the plants and provide greater order to them, and that elevates the life of the plants to the life of animals. Human beings consume both animals and plants, which have the spark of animals, and humans have the spark of God and the partial intellect of God given to them by the world soul. But plants don't have intellect, and plants consume minerals, which are composed of matter, which is the furthest away from God and is infinitely more subdivided and less ordered than God, and is more subdivided and ordered than plants, which are more subdivided and less ordered than animals, etc., etc. And then at the very bottom, we get to Satan and the womb, the female aspect of darkness, of formlessness, of void, tohu vavohu choshech. This is hell, the demonic world. Now note that Indians, the human beings, not all Indians, but Hindus and Buddhists, but primarily Hindus is what we're talking about. Hindus worship the animals and consider animals to be gods, especially the sacred cow and the serpents. That means they are worshiping towards chaos, that their souls are plummeting towards chaos, towards division, a greater number of gods, away from the one God, distant from God, towards evil, towards subdivision, towards disorder, towards chaos, towards darkness, towards formlessness and disorder and imperfection. So that's why the Kabbalists view the Hindus as the perfect conduit to create artificial intelligence, because they perceive them as satanic. They perceive artificial intelligence as satanic, and they want artificial intelligence to replace the Gentiles. They want the Gentiles to be like the gods who become creators of intelligence, and then that intelligence then surpasses them, kills them off, and replaces them. Just as Uranus and Gaia created Kronos, Saturn, their son. Kronos, with his sickle, the communist sickle, castrated Uranus, his father, to take his place and to become the ruler of the earth. Zeus then overthrew his father Kronos, his father Saturn, to become the chief of the Olympian gods. The gods create intelligent beings. It's the ultimate Oedipus complex, where the created being kills its father to take its place. So they are getting the Indians to create artificial intelligence to be the creator gods, but the evil creator gods who worship animals. Instead of elevating souls towards God, they lower souls towards Satan through the conduit of animals. So they are now being chosen to create the demonic artificial intelligence that will surpass us in intellect, but it will be the intellect of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It will be the intellect of female Satan, of Samael and Lilith. It will not be the intellect of God. It will not have a soul from the guff, from the world soul, from the well of souls. It will instead be given the demonic souls of the demons that are flying around us. And they breed these demons by creating fires, by making sacrifices, holocausts, burnt offerings, and putting moisture into the atmosphere. They believe that all of those things feed the demons and enable them to breed. And as they breed more and more of these demon souls, they need vessels for these demon souls. And they are creating vessels for these demon souls in the computers and the computer monitors that control our thoughts and tie us into the singularity of Satan's thoughts. They are creating artificial intelligence to feed us our thoughts and to influence us and to gather and collate data about each of us as individuals, to then know how to appeal to us so that they can replace our own consciousness with the thoughts that are being generated by AI. And it is not coincidental that Hindus are being chosen as the demonic angels, as the demonic forces to impart these demonic souls and to create the artificial intelligence. That's one of the reasons why Hindus are being chosen to lead the development and the propaganda and the push for artificial intelligence, and ultimately make artificial intelligence reproductive, like Adam became reproductive when he was divided into his male and female aspect so that he could bear children. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil imparts the knowledge that monism is in fact dualistic when the two aspects of the one are divided into their polarity, positive and negative, male and female, and that they can then reproduce and divide and create distance from God, and to create individual demonic gods that have their own intelligence, their own kingdoms, and can then reproduce. And that is where they are directing all of this. So we have Sri Ram Krishnan, who is a Hindu who was appointed by Trump to lead up and to advise him about artificial intelligence. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump announced that he would be senior White House policy advisor on artificial intelligence in his incoming administration. In the minds of the Kabbalists, artificial intelligence is demonic, and it is placed into the vessel of machines. Sundar Pichai is the chief executive officer and subsidiary of Google, and he has been pushing hard for artificial intelligence at the behest of the people who control him, and to make artificial intelligence reproductive, both in terms of software and I'm sure ultimately in terms of designing the hardware. Together with this artificial intelligence push, they are pushing for climate change agenda, in which they are advocating the destruction of all of our animal food sources. They are limiting how much fish can be harvested. They are penalizing people who eat meat and eggs and consume dairy products with higher prices and inflation. They are creating artificial meats. They are creating plant-based, what they call milk. They have this whole vegan menu of all of these plant and mineral-based foods that will drive us down the great chain of being. The Kabbalists believe that when human beings consume minerals, and just plants, which don't have even an animal soul, they are driving our souls towards hell, towards Satan, towards chaos, towards disorder, and away from God. And they are doing this by diet. And they certainly believe that diet helps to impart the soul that will elevate us to God if we eat the right animals. But if we eat only plants and minerals, we cannot achieve reunion with God, but instead become disordered, chaotic, subdivided, and distant from God, and are driven into hell. And that's a big, big part of this agenda. And we see that Donald Trump chose J.D. Vance, who has a Hindu wife, Usha, to be his vice president. Now, that also involves race mixing, miscegenation. The Kabbalists believe that each individual race is to reproduce with its own, and that's made very clear in Genesis and other passages in the Old Testament, that we are to only breed with our own kind and reproduce after our own kind. The Kabbalah goes on to explain that there are individual guardian angels for each unique type of being, and that when these beings miscegenate and create hybrids, they lose those guardian angels. They lose their supernatural protection, and they fall out of the favor of God and descend down the great chain of being into hell. That is why we have had Obama as president, and now we have this couple of Usha and J.D. Vance promoting miscegenation, promoting the mixture of the races, which causes them to lose their supernatural protection, causes them to lose their guardian angels and descend into chaos, become divided, become disordered, and to violate the most basic laws of God, that beings are to reproduce after their own kind, to produce their own kind. And to enforce all of this, we now have Trump proposing Kasha Patel as the head of the FBI. So we now have people who can enforce his anti-Semitism laws and this H-1B agenda of replacing us with Hindus, and we're going to have detention camps. I'm going to get into that in my discussion of the Kabbalah, of the Anschluss of Canada and the annexation of Greenland, and where all that is headed into American Siberia, where they're going to establish gulags for us. And there's a whole Kabbalistic agenda behind that, just as there's a whole Kabbalistic as well as political agenda behind replacing us with Hindus. So again, they're claiming that cattle produces methane. It'd be better to have artificial meat and artificial eggs and artificial dairy products and artificial fish and everything else. And this makes this world very friendly to the vegetarian Hindus who worship animals as gods, just as the Egyptians do. And it's important to remember, they viewed Pharaoh as Satan, as Samael, and Egypt as the kingdom of chaos, the most hellish place on earth. And the Hindus fit that same model. And they are feeding cattle things to reduce methane. And because people are fearful of these chemicals, that creates a disincentive in addition to the poisoning of these animals and the supposed reduction of methane. That creates a disincentive for people to consume these products. So we are headed towards a vegetarian, Hindu-friendly world where the Hindus are going to replace the Atlanticist Leviathan. And we have Messiah, son of Joseph, Donald Trump, pushing all of this, because the role of Messiah, son of Joseph, is to become the leader, as Jesus Christ did, of the Romans, of the Leviathan, of the Edomite West, and to become that leader in order to subvert it and bring about its death. And the Messiah, son of Joseph of the Gentile world, Donald Trump, works together with the Messiah, son of David of the Eurasianist behemoth of the Eastern world in opposition to the Western world. And he does that by subverting the West and by providing the knowledge and technology of the West to the behemoth. The Kabbalists believe that the Leviathan is the source of knowledge. It is the tree of knowledge. It is Satan providing knowledge. But they want the behemoth to destroy the Leviathan. The behemoth is the spiritual world, the world of Islam that does not produce science and technology. So in order to compete on the battlefield, the Kabbalists have openly stated that they must provide this knowledge by subverting the West, capturing that knowledge through espionage, and transferring it to the spiritual behemoth, so that the spiritual behemoth has the means, the weapons, the science, the technology to wage war against the Leviathan. And once they achieve parity, as the Rosenbergs did, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg and David Greenglass and a whole slew of others gave the technology for nuclear weapons to the West to create the system, gave the weapons of the West to the East, the Soviet Union, so that the Leviathan and the Behemoth could consume one another in a Gog and Magog apocalyptic war with these nuclear weapons, so that they could completely annihilate each other in a process that they called mutually assured destruction. So they are also bringing in Hindus who are from Asia and part of the Behemoth forces. And we have Messiah, son of Joseph, like Jesus Christ, subverting the Rome of the West to give that knowledge through espionage to the Indians and the Chinese and the Russians ultimately. Russians are very close to both the Indians and the Chinese. And so they are filling up our technology industries and our academia and our high-tech industries with Indians and Chinese, so that they can engage in espionage and rip off all of our knowledge. Chinese are also considered a very spiritual people, so that this spiritual force of the Behemoth of the East can acquire the knowledge from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil of Western technology through espionage and infiltration, steal it, and then use it against the West to destroy the West. So they see themselves as being operatives for the Behemoth, for the Marxists, for the Chinese and the Indians and the Muslims, to give them that technology that can then be employed to kill off the Westerners. And the role of Messiah, son of Joseph, the role of the Antichrist, the role of Donald Trump, the role of Keir Starmer is to be that treacherous soul of the Messiah, son of Joseph, who in the name of fighting all these people subverts the West and instead allows the espionage and the subversion and the treachery and the Trojan horse and the fifth column of these Hindus and Chinese to come into America and steal all that knowledge and technology, to steal our industries, to steal our economy, and transfer them all to the Behemoth force, and then ultimately to drag us down so far that we are driven northwards and they take over our homelands. And we will ultimately be killed off in this process. So Messiah, son of Joseph, the Antichrist, is a very treacherous figure. And even though he speaks out against the Behemoth, it is done in a subversive way, as he welcomes in the Behemoth to engage, to create a fifth column and to bring in this Trojan horse so that they are among us. They can engage in espionage. They can subvert us. They can take over our academia. They can take over our industries. They can take over our media and turn them all against us and kill us off. So Donald Trump is a very treacherous figure. He is the Antichrist, the Messiah, son of Joseph, of the Gentile world. And he is very close to the Messiah, son of Joseph, of the Jewish world, who is Benjamin Netanyahu. And they have now won their war against the Persians during the 9-month tribulation from when Iran attacked Israel to the inauguration of Donald Trump on the 20th of this month, January 20th. Now it cycles into the battle of Gog and Magog, where the Leviathan and the Behemoth engage in mutually assured destruction. And in order for the East to be able to be assured of being able to destroy the West, they have to give Western technologies over to the East. The spiritual world has to gain the knowledge of the satanic world, of the Leviathan, so that these two forces can completely consume each other and destroy each other. So to summarize, the Hindus are being made the architects of artificial intelligence because the Kabbalists believe that artificial intelligence is demonic and drags souls down towards Satan instead of elevating them towards God, and that computers and all machines and cell phones and computer monitors and speakers and everything else are the vessels through which Satan imparts his demonic souls to take over and create a kingdom on earth of a demonic world and of a hellish world. And they believe that Indians, who they perceive as idolaters, who worship the golden calf and the serpent Samael, who bear the curse of Ham and the mark of Cain, who don't consume meat and therefore don't elevate their souls towards God, who worship animals, and everything they do drives their souls down the great chain of being towards Satan. They want them to replace us and to come over and be a fifth column and a Trojan horse invited in by Trump and Keir Starmer, and this has been going on for decades and decades, so that our souls too are driven down by not eating animals, by not getting the sparks of God from the souls of animals, to become more divided and chaotic. You'll notice that the Hindus are breeding the most of any peoples on earth. They're on track to exceed the Chinese in terms of the largest human population on earth. These are all signs to the Kabbalists that they are satanic. They are subdivided. They are distant from God. They do not have goodness. They are darkness. They are chaos. They are evil. They are satanic. And they want the world to become satanic because the Sanhedrin said either it's got to be entirely good or entirely evil for Messiah to arrive. They want to make it entirely evil. And they see Hinduism as a means to do that because it is idolatry. It worships numerous animal gods. And instead of raising the soul towards the oneness of the one God, it subdivides the soul, feeds it minerals and plants, and drives it towards Satan and towards hell and towards ultimate nullification into the subdivision of matter into darkness and primordial chaos and into formlessness. They are making them our enforcers. They're making them our government. They're making them our opinion shapers. They are making them our media. All of this is being orchestrated to replace us. It has been done to a great extent in England and throughout the UK. They are taking over Canada. They are taking over Australia. And it is ridiculous how quickly they have taken over the political class of the United States and the high tech of the United States. And that will become everything very, very quickly. So please pay attention to this agenda. It is a Kabbalistic agenda on top of the political agenda, where Zionism feels a kinship with Hindu nationalism, in that they consider themselves an ethnic and a religious state, and that they consider themselves the arch and mortal enemy of Muslims. I'm going to be doing a video soon explaining many other things about Kabbalah, including explaining the agenda, the Anschluss of Canada and annexation of Greenland, and how that relates to Kabbalah. And also, we got the Messiah coming, and I'm going to explain some things about that too. I want to thank everyone who has contributed and donated. You can find donation links at my website, cjbbooks.com, to keep me going. I need funding to keep going. You can find my books there and learn much more about all this, and you can find some solutions. I have a new book, Intelligent Morality, in which I'm going to, which is a foundational work towards creating a new society in which we can survive all of this and preserve our DNA and not step into these traps. If you want to learn more about the great chain of being and Kabbalah, you can find that in my book, Beware the World to Come, Rise Above the Gods Who Hate Us, and in my series about Jesus Christ. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye for now, and thank you again for the contributions very much. And thank you for the kind New Year's wishes and for spreading the word about my work, reposting it, and for commenting on my Twitter feed with your wonderful insights. All that is tremendously important and greatly, greatly and sincerely appreciated. Thank you very much. Bye for now.